Chapter 3. Somewhere along the way, my normally laid-back brother started to spread worries. I can't say exactly when or why this began, but Craig, the boy who could high-five and what up his way around the neighborhood, who kidnapped any time he had 10 free minutes, regardless of his surroundings, grew more faithful and vigilant at home, convinced that ca- catastrophe catastrophe was creeping our way. In the evenings at our apartment, he rehearsed for every possible outcome, worried he'd lose his sight. He took the he took to wearing a blindfold around the house, learning to navigate our living room and kitchen by feel. Wor- Worried he might go deaf, he began teaching himself sign language. There was also apparently to threat of amputation prompting Craig to fumble his way through various meals and homework sessions with his right arm tied behind his back. Because you never did know, Craig's biggest fear, however, was also probably the most realistic, and that was fire. House fires were a regular occurrence in Chicago, in part due to slumlords who let their buildings slide into this disrepair and were all too happy to reap the insurance benefits when the fire tore through. Home smoke detectors detectors were a recent development and still expensive for working class people to afford. Inside our tight city grid, fire was almost a fact of life, a random but persistent snatcher of homes and hearts. My grandfather's south side had moved to our neighborhood after a fire destroyed his old house. On the west side, though luckily nobody'd been hurt. According to my mom, south side stood on the curb outside the burning house, shouting for the firefighters to direct their hoses away from his precious jazz albums. More recently, in a tragedy almost too giant for my young mind to take in, one of my fifth grade classmates, a boy with a sweet face and a tall afro named Lester McCollum, who lived around the corner from us, had died in a fire that also killed his brother and sister, the three of them trapped by flames in bedrooms upstairs. Theirs was the first wake I ever attended. Every kid in the neighborhood sobbing at a funeral parlor as a Jackson 5 album played softly in the background. The adults stunned into silence. There were three closed caskets at a, at the front of the room, each one with a framed photograph of a smiling child on its lid. Mrs. McCollum, who with her husband had managed to survive the fire by jumping out a window set before them, so slumped and broken that it hurt to look in her direction. For days afterward, the skeleton of the McCullens' burned-out townhouse continued to hiss and cave in on itself. The smell of smoke lingered heavily in the neighborhood. As time passed, Craig's anxieties only grew. At school, we'd been put through the paces of teacher-led evacuation evacuation drills and thought how to stop, drop, and roll. And as a result, Craig decided that we needed to step it up on safety at home, electing himself the family fire marshal with me as his lieutenant, lieutenant ready to clear exit pathway during drills, or boss around our parents as needed. If there was ever going to be a fire, we wanted to be ready for it. Preparation mattered. Our family was not just on time, we arrived early to everything, knowing that it made my dad less vulnerable, spurring him from having to worry about finding a parking spot that didn't require him to walk a long way or an accessible seat in the bleachers at one of Craig's basketball games. The lesson being that in life you control what you can. To this end, as kids, we ran through our possible escape routes, trying to guess whether we could jump from a window to the oak tree in front of the house or to a near neighbor's rooftop in the event of a fire. We imagined what would happen if a grease fire broke out in a kitchen, or if an electrical fire started in a basement, or if lightning struck from above. Craig and I had a little concern about our mom in an emergency. She was small and ugly, a gill, and one of those people who, if she had to, could probably lift a car off a baby. What was harder to talk about was Dad's disability, the obvious but unstated truth that he couldn't readily leap from a window like the rest of us, and it had been years since we'd seen him run.